In this video, I'm going to do some language review with you, go over some definitions, and do some example problems with you. A noun is a person, place, or a thing. Possessive noun shows ownership. Examples would be like yours, mine, ours, or hers. A verb is a word that describes an action or event. An auxiliary verb modifies the meaning of other verbs. Examples would be like be, have, or do. Action verbs expresses physical and mental actions. Examples would be throw, visit, or remember. Linking verbs connects the subject to information about the subject. An example would be appear, sound, or look. Adverb is a word that describes a verb. Example would be almost, fast, easily. A pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun. An example would be I, me, he, it. An adjective is words that describe a noun. Examples: tall, pretty, green. Comparative adjective is used to compare one noun to another noun. Examples would be bigger, worse, more polite. A superlative adjective compares 3 or more nouns. Examples would be smallest, or most interesting, or biggest. Preposition is a word or a group of words that show direction, location, time, or introduces an object. An example would be in, on, under, near, or within. A subjective conjunction is used to connect two simple sentences. Examples would be like before, after, unless, and while. Synonyms are words with the same or similar meaning. An example would be small and little. An antonym are words with the opposite meaning. Example would be small and big. Prefix is a word or a letter or even a number that goes or is in place before another. An example would be dis, and the word disappear. The dis part is the prefix. A root word is the basic part of the word. An example would be agree. In the word disagree or agreement, the word agree is the root word. A suffix is a word or letter added to the end of the word. An example would be able. Agreeable. Able is the suffix in this word. Introductory element consists of clauses, phrases, and words that appear at the start of a sentence. An example is however or whenever. Don't forget, for introductory elements, you put a comma after the word or phrase. Independent clause can stand by itself as a simple sentence. An example would be, I was late for work. A dependent clause is a clause that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. An example would be something like, that we stayed at last year. Different types of sentences. Simple sentence is a sentence structure that contains one independent clause and no dependent clause. An example would be, Joe waited for the train. A compound sentence is composed of at least 2 independent clauses when 2 sentences come together as one sentence. An example would be, this house is too expensive and that house is too small. A complex sentence has an independent and a dependent clause. An example would be, I burned dinner, but not the cake. A fragmented sentence is one that is not a complete thought. An example would be, because it's raining. A run-on is 2 or more ideas that are not joined properly. An example would be, the night was very cold. My fingers felt frozen. Okay, now I'm going to do some examples and practices with you of the words we just kind of went over. So the first one is a sentence. Orca or whale often live in cold waters. We're going to identify what each of these words are. So orca is the adjective. Whale is a noun. It's talking about an animal. Often is the adjective. Live is the verb of this sentence. In is the preposition or location. Cold is an adjective. It is describing. And waters is again another noun. Now the second sentence is asking which of these words fit best in this blank spot. The damage from the tornado was blank than they had anticipated. So for this one, I'm just going to fit in each word and see which one sounds the best or works the best. The damage from the tornado was more than they anticipated. That might work. The damage from the tornado was bad than they had anticipated. That doesn't really make sense. So we could go ahead and cross that one out. The damage from the tornado was badder than they had anticipated. That's not right at all. The damage from the tornado was worse than they had anticipated. That also works. So we have two ones. The damage from the tornado was more than they anticipated. The damage from the tornado was worse than they anticipated. In this instance, worse fits a little bit better. The next one, she left her pencil on her desk. We're trying to figure out what this word on means. So if we go back to the words that we went over, what is on doing? On is describing the location of the pencil and where it's at. And what word describes the location? It's the preposition. Which is telling us again the location. This one, according to my map, the campsite is up ahead on the left. Now, this has an introductory phrase or element. We talked about that a comma is supposed to go into or after an introductory phrase or word. So in this sentence, according to my map, that is the introductory element or phrase of this sentence. So a comma goes after it. And then, again, it's asking which word best fits in this blank space right here. That blank can be a copperhead snake, but I am not sure. That can be a copperhead snake, but I'm not sure. That could be it. That might be a copperhead snake, but I'm not sure. That might work as well. That must be a copperhead snake, but I'm not sure. Or I can go ahead and take must out because that's kind of like definite. And it's saying that they're not sure. So that can be a copperhead snake, but I'm not sure. Or that might be a copperhead snake, but I'm not sure. In this instance, might is the better option for the blank spot. And the last one. It's given us a word and then two other words. And you were going to write S for synonym, which is the word that is similar or the same meaning, or A for antonym, which is the different. So the word large, tiny, and then gigantic. Is tiny a synonym? Does it mean the same thing or the opposite? Well, large and tiny, they don't mean the same thing. They mean the opposite. So that would be A. And gigantic, does that mean the same thing or the opposite? Well, they both mean large or big or huge. So that would be the same. So that would be S. So these are just a few of the examples that you might see on more grammar worksheets or language reviews that you have already had assignments for or have assignments for coming up.